Okay, hi everyone. So today's lecture is about the memory palace method, which is simply the best memory method that exists. It's an ancient method, it's an ancient technique from that's been used by many different cultures, and it's basically something that if you actually decide to dedicate and apply this seriously, you can memorize absolutely anything you want. It's really up to you. So we're gonna start with quick information. So the first midterm is due today. So if you're taking this course for credit, please, if you haven't already, send me your Anki flashcards or your 15 Anki flashcards. That's the midterm. So just send a picture of the Anki browse page. Just send on email. That's it. Do you have a question? Just take a picture, send a screenshot, whatever. Just send it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Just go to Anki, browse, take a screenshot, and send it to me on email. That's fine. That's all. Let me see. Also, next week I'll be away, so I'm gonna teach on Thursday. So I'm coming back Wednesday night, so I can't teach on Wednesday. So it's gonna be the same time, the same classroom, but on Thursday instead. If you cannot show up, I'm not gonna. If you're for credit and you don't show up, I'm gonna excuse your absence simply because it's gonna be on a different day. But I will teach, so it's gonna be about number memorization. So, but yeah, it's gonna be at the same time, same place on Thursday instead, just because I won't be here. So let's move on to any questions, by the way, about that, about the midterm, anything. So I'm gonna move on. So let's start with some lore, some legend about the memory palace method. So I want you guys to read this like out loud for me because I'm not gonna just be reading here out loud. So any volunteers, like the first person to volunteer, read it. Yeah, sure.
The first to teach an art of memory is said to have been Simonides, of whom a well-known story is related, that when for a stipulated sum he had written in honor of a pugilist who had won the crown, a poem of the kind usually composed for conquerors in the games. Half of the money was refused him because, according to a practice very common with poets, he had made a digression in praise of Castor and Pollux, for which reason he was told to apply for the other half to the deities, whose praises he had chosen to celebrate. The deities, according to the story, paid it.
So yeah, anyone else wants to read? Who else wants to read it? Anyone? You can move on then.
During a splendid entertainment in honor of that victory, Semonides, being invited to the banquet, was called away from it by a message that two young men, mounted on horses, earnestly requested to see him. When he went out, he found nobody, but he discovered from what followed that the deities were not ungrateful to him, for he had scarcely passed the threshold when the banquet room fell down upon the guests and crushed them so horribly that those who went to look for the bodies of the dead in order to bury them were unable to recognize by any mark not only their faces but even their limbs.
Yeah. So Simonides was this poet. He was doing this job of like creating this poem for this guy. Guy was not happy that he was praising deities. So yeah, asked for the deities for the money then. But yeah, he got saved from an accident. Who wants to read the next person? Do you want to read? Okay, sorry. Who want? Do you want to keep on? Okay, sure. You offered, so now yeah, now it's you.
Sometimes, by the aid of his memory, is said to have pointed out the bodies to their friends in the exact order in which they had sat, and this circumstance suggested to him the discovery of the truth that the best aid to clearness of memory consists in orderly arrangement. He inferred that persons desiring to train this faculty must select localities and form mental images of the facts they wish to remember and store those images in the locality. With the result that the arrangement of the localities will preserve the order of the facts, and the images of the facts will designate the facts themselves. And we shall employ the localities and images respectively as a wax writing tablet and the letters written on it.
Yeah. So this lore, nobody knows if it's true or not, but the idea is that this is like the backstory of the memory palace method. So the logic is that given the positions of where the guests were, when Simonides closed his eyes and he tried to remember, like he would walk through the the place, he could recall, oh, so and so was sitting here. So in all the construction of the place, it could be like, well, this place, when I walk in my head, this place is where that person was. So they could identify that bunch of limbs, destroyed limbs, were actually referring to that person. So we are gonna do that, of trying to build this capacity, this way of representing things as images and put them in a place. And then when we close our eyes, we're gonna walk in this place and we're gonna recall the facts. So I took this from Quintilian's and Cicero's accounts, and I joined both just to make it the more interesting part of each. But yeah, that's a very cool lore. So now let's do an example of memorization. So let's say you want to memorize this grocery list. So you have milk, eggs, chicken, broccoli, apples, oats, pasta, detergent, cheese, and bread. So the first thing we have to do after you got your list that you want to memorize is to choose a place that you're going to use to memorize this, which is going to be your memory palace. Okay. And for this case, we're going to use your childhood home, because usually that's where that's the place most people are the most familiar with. So I constructed these 10 places that your childhood home probably had, and we're going to use these places to memorize this list. So I want you guys to close your eyes, and try to recall your childhood home. So you go to the living room, there's the sofa, now you look at the television. Now I want you to go to the to the kitchen and look at the fridge. There's also the stove, there are the cabinets. As I say, I want you to picture those in your head. Try to recall the bathroom. So we had a sink, a toilet, shower. Now you go to your room, there was the bed and the window. So okay, you guys can open your eyes. So basically, I want you guys to be familiar with that imagination, with this path. So we have in the living room, sofa, television, fridge, stove, cabinets, sink, toilet, shower, bed, and window. This path. So let's go backwards now. You close your eyes again. So window in your room, the bed, go to the bathroom, shower, toilet, sink, in the kitchen, the cabinets, the stove, the fridge, in the living room, the television, and the sofa. Okay, now it's time to memorize. So let's start memorizing. You guys can open your eyes now. So what we're gonna do is that we're gonna place each item of the grocery list in a different place of your childhood home. And first, to do that, we need to create memorable images. So in the last class, I was talking about the difference between blind and visual memorization, which is the idea that it's the idea of creating images to represent things you want to remember. And the logic, one of the things that I taught in the last lecture was the principles of visualization. And what matters is 3 things are very important for visualization. It's emotion, so weirdness, disgust, anger, humor, lust, whatever, any emotions that are involved in the image. The more emotions there are present in the image, the better, more memorable. If you have an image that is cartoonish, that also helps, and also have an image that has interaction. If you imagine things just stopped, that's not as memorable as imagining interaction. Okay, so we're going to implement those principles of visualization here right now for creating those images. So I'm going to walk through the first 5, and then the last 5 items of the list you guys are going to do on your own. So we have here the first. I want you guys to imagine in your sofa, in your house. I want you to imagine the sofa completely soaked in milk. Completely soaked in milk. That's going to be our first item. So it's going to be sticky, and it's going to have so much milk, it's going to actually be dripping onto the floor. So it's going to be very gross. I want you to actually try to picture that. You go to your living room, you look at the sofa, and it's all dirty, all soaked in milk. So I want you to spend some time with that image. And here, because it's gross, it's going to be more memorable. Now, everybody imagine that. So now we move on to the next item, which is going to be the eggs, and the position is the television. And I want you to imagine, to picture yourself throwing eggs at the television and the yolks splattering everywhere, everywhere. So I want you to take some time to imagine that vividly. Now we go to the third item, which is the kitchen, the chicken, and the position is the fridge. So the third item of the list is the chicken, and the third position of the memory palace is the fridge. So we always move one item in the list and one position in the memory palace. So I want you to imagine a human-sized chicken opening the fridge and tossing the food out with its beak, and all around the kitchen. It's like messing up everything. It's throwing everything around. And I want you to remember, look, the more unusual the image is, the more memorable it is. So take some time to imagine that. So the chicken, human size, is just destroying everything, all the fridge, throwing the items out of the fridge. For the fourth, it's broccoli and the stove. I want you to imagine your stove is actually made of broccoli. Imagine it's made of broccoli. And imagine that you take a bite into it. Like, try to bite it. Can you imagine the taste of it? Try to picture it. Because it's weird, this is going to make it more memorable. And the fact that you're imagining interaction between yourself and the stove, imagine biting it, makes it more memorable. So everybody went through that. Now the fifth item are apples and the place cabinets. I want you to imagine you open your cabinet in the kitchen and an endless flood of apples is pouring out of it. It's just flooding the entire kitchen. It's flooding the entire kitchen. So now let's try to recall those. I want you to try to imagine the first place. The first place is the sofa. What does it remind you of? Oh, milk, okay. Now you go to the television, and what does it remind you of? Okay. Now you go to the fridge. What does it remind you? What do you see? Now you go to the stove. What do you see? Okay. Now the cabinets. Okay, great. So everybody gets the idea, or any questions about that? Does anyone have any question of how that works? Because now it's your turn. You guys have to create your own images to memorize the remaining elements of the list. So you have oats and sink. So the item is oats, the position is sink. Then you have pasta, the position is toilet, detergent, shower, cheese, bed, bread, and window. Now I want you to imagine for each one of those, go one by one and do what I did. So create the images on your own. You can use, you can write them down to make it easier to think, but try to think of images that are memorable. So the chicken in the fridge, you could have pictured a chicken inside the fridge, but that's not as memorable as imagining a human-sized chicken tossing everything around. You know, try to make it weird, cartoonish. So I'll give you guys some time to think of that. And if you guys have questions or want suggestions, I'm more than willing to. When you guys finish putting all of them there and creating the weird images, raise your hands for me to get a sense. Sure. if anyone needs help with creating an image, a memorable image, just let me know. The bread in the window. You can imagine like a bread breaking your window, a human-sized bread just destroying your window, breaking it, punching it. Anyone is still figuring out the images? Is everyone done? Okay. So if you're not done, please let me know so I can like help a little. Okay. This is like a skill that gets developed with time. So now that everybody created their images, let's recall from the beginning. So you go, close your eyes, and imagine you're there in your house. You go to the living room and you look at the sofa. What do you think of? Okay, great. So now you look at the television. What do you see? Okay, now you go to the kitchen. You look at the fridge. What do you see? Okay, now you look at the stove. What do you see? Okay, awesome. So now you look at the cabinets. What happens? Okay, now you go to the bathroom and you look at the sink. Great. Now you look at the toilet. Okay, now you look at the shower. What is there? Okay, awesome. Now you go to your room and you look at the bed. What is there? Okay, awesome. Now you look at the window. What is there? Awesome. Beautiful. Now let's do backwards. You close your eyes again. So look at the window. What is there? You look at the bed. Now you go to the bathroom. You look at the shower. What is there? Okay, now you look at the toilet. Look at the sink. Okay, now you go to the kitchen. You look at the cabinets. What is there? Okay, great. Now you look at the stove. What is there? Okay, look at the fridge. Okay, now you go to the living room. Look at the television. Look at the sofa. Awesome. Beautiful. Marvelous. Wonderful. So I wanted to do this backwards as well for you to understand that when you use the memory palace method, you memorize the same list forwards and backwards automatically. So you can, if you memorize like a huge list of whatever, you know it in any direction you want. So you can skip rooms, you can skip, you can go backwards, you can skip 2 by 2, you can do every other position, you can do whatever way you want. But once that's imprinted in your memory palace, you have all those items available to you in any direction you want. So here's the step-by-step procedure for the memory palace method for you to memorize absolutely anything you want. So we have, the first is that you pick something to memorize. So you choose something you want to learn, that you want to memorize, and then you write it as a list. Then you choose a place to be your memory palace. So you choose some place you know well to be your memory palace. You plan out the whole route of this memory palace and connect each item of the list to a position in the memory palace using a memorable image. That's the procedure for every time you apply the memory palace method. You pick a list, choose a memory palace, plan the route, connect each item to a different position. So let's cover a few mistakes that are very common to be done in this. So loci means position. Okay, so when we speak of memory palaces, a locus is a position. It's the same thing as position. It's a very common word in mnemonics, so I'm going to be using this. But loci is the plural of locus, basically. Yeah, if you study biology, you probably have heard of that in another context as well. So the first mistake is to put loci close to each other. So if you're building a memory palace, you do not want all the loci to be very close, all the positions to be very close to each other. You want to give each position a little bit of room, a little bit of space. Okay? Or else the images can get crowded and then they get confusing and it gets hard to remember. The second problem is similar loci. So if you have a bunch of positions that look the same, that's not good. The way the memory palace works is because you know the place in your head, and what happens is that our human nature is wired to remember places well. Okay, so when we were just hunter gatherers, we needed to know which place had dangerous animals, which places um, had access, let's say, where the nearest river was, or anything like that. We needed to know places well. We needed to know things well. So we needed to have a good geographic memory. And what the memory palace does is that it makes use of this privilege that we have. But the way it works is because we are associating different positions to different images. If two positions look the same, feel the same to you, you're going to confuse the images. Okay, so they must be different. So that's a very big mistake. So for instance, if you're using this room as a memory palace, you cannot use each chair as a different position because they look the same. They're going to look the same in your head. Third, dark loci. If you're creating a memory palace, you gotta know the memory palace from bright. If you, let's say, if you use a place you've only been to when it was dark, you probably did not see it as well as if it was bright, as if it was in daylight. So what happens that in your mind, in your memory, when you try to imagine the place, it's also going to be dark. It's also going to be hard to see. So that's a curious thing. Like you can't. It's not like our brains don't have like. It's not as if you go somewhere and then you tell your brain, oh look, make this image of this place brighter, and then your brain just, oh, okay, now I know how the place looks when it's bright. No, it actually looks dark in your head too. And that's simply because you didn't get the chance to see the details of that place as clearly. And we want that. We want the memory palace that we are familiar with, where we know all the positions. We can close our eyes and picture the place and walk in the place. The fourth problem is crowded loci, which is the idea of putting a bunch of images in the same position of the memory palace. I'm going to cover that better later. But the idea is that when you're memorizing a list in your memory palace, sometimes you're going to put more than one item per loci, per locus, and we're going to show that later. But you do not want to put too many things in the same locus, like too many images, too many things going around the same locus, or else it gets confusing and it gets easy to forget. But more about that later. So, how do you find memory palaces? Before I cover this, any questions? Anything you would like to ask? Sure.
I don't know if this really counts as a question, but like, what if you want to memorize like a lot of things? How exactly would you do that? Like a small area, like a different location.
You have some options. If you want to memorize a very large amount of information, you either get a bunch of memory palaces or you get a big memory palace, like a single big memory palace. But you can't do that. You can break down into multiple memory palaces. Usually, each memory palace, a good number of positions in a memory palace is like from up to 50 positions, I would say. 50 to 75, that would be like a max. Usually from 8 to 15 rooms. But I'm gonna talk more about that later. But yeah, you can just get a bunch of memory palaces. You can spread information across multiple memory palaces. And it's easier to remember the order of them. It's not as hard. Like you move from one palace to another, it's not as hard to remember. Okay, so how do you find memory palaces? The first idea is to use places you have visited. So houses, schools, businesses you've been to. Another idea is to use house tour videos. So these are some links on the slides. They're clickable. But Open House 24 is a YouTube channel, and as Imaze is a very good guy. Like he has a bunch of videos, very good channel. I use his videos a lot to build my memory palaces. This third one, Luxury Real Estate. It's a website. You can like walk in multiple houses and see like houses there are for sale. You can look at them, and because it's a luxury real estate, it's going to be very large. It's going to be very big. It's going to have multiple places. Third option is games. here I have this website, Maya's Memory Palaces. It's basically a website. Maya is a memory athlete, and she published this website where she has a bunch of pictures of inside multiple games, and she structured them as like memory palaces. So she used maps in games as memory palaces, and she shared that. So it's very useful. It's very helpful. There are like many memory palaces there available. She's very cool. And here we have 360-degree videos on YouTube. So YouTube has a YouTube, you can access those videos by just going to YouTube's virtual reality. So all the videos there have 360. They get assigned under this category, and you can find all of them here. So just Google on YouTube, YouTube's virtual reality, and you're gonna find all the videos that are 360. Another option is to use shows or movies. That works as well. So as you can see, these are just a bunch of ideas. Why am I showing you all of that? It's not so much for you to think right now. It's more because later, if you're serious about it and you're like, I wanna see if Mike is actually right and can memorize anything. So you're gonna be like, oh well, I need to find places, I need to find memory palaces. Sometime later, you're gonna be like, well, I'm gonna go back to the drive folder he had, and I'm gonna check how I can find places, how can I find memory palaces. Trust me, if you ever decide to memorize a lot of information, this is gonna be helpful. Maybe it may not be this week, may not be next month, maybe next year, maybe in a future time. But what I want you guys to understand is that you will never run out of memory palaces. So you can use this idea of the memory palace method is that you can use a place to memorize something, to memorize a list. And you have no limit to how many places you can have. You can have thousands of positions spread across multiple memory palaces, across dozens and dozens of memory palaces. It doesn't matter. There's no problem. You're never going to run out of memory palaces because you can always find a new one. You can go to a new place. You can recall a friend's house you visited when you were young. Whatever it is, you can go to these sources for digital memory palaces and so on. So you're never going to run out. And if you're having trouble recalling ideas of places you've been to, you're struggling with that. Here are some specific ideas. You don't have to write it down, but these are just specific ideas in case they are here just for reference, okay? For later when you're trying to think of memorizing something. So we like houses, grocery stores, malls, airports, aquariums, parking garage, subways, stations, stadiums, arenas, airplanes. There are a bunch of ideas here that you can use. So now I want to show you guys how I structure my memory palace. Not all of them, but like some of my memory palaces. So I'm gonna go here, and this is already available in the Drive folder. So here's the Drive folder, the memory learning course. So here in the resources, you can have access here, resources, memory palaces, Mike's memory palaces. So it opens this. So these are some memory palaces I have. These are like some really many positions. So here we have like a bunch. So we have the idea is that we have the name of the memory palace here, and I grouped them. You don't need this. Here's a link from the video I used. So for instance, this one is one video from that guy I said. So he covered this house here that was for sale or something. So, or sometimes it's not even for sale. It's just a random millionaire's house, and he goes through the house and show. So in this video, you can like walk through the house with him, and when you close your eyes, you can like walk through the same house in your head. And then I divided here the different regions, and for each region, I put a different position. So there's the driveway. The driveway had like all these positions here, and so on. So this is just an example of how I structure my memory palaces on Excel. You don't have to use Excel for this. These are here just for reference mostly. Because I do recommend you guys to put your memory palaces somewhere, not necessarily on Excel. So if we were, for instance, when we memorized the grocery list, you could have put something like, well, we have the living room. So let me show something. If you are using Word, a good way to use is like use bullet list. So you click here, bullet list. You write each room of the memory palace, like living room is the first room, and you go room by room. Well, we have a kitchen. We have the kitchen, then we have the bathroom, and we have the room. So we sort out all the rooms of our memory palace. And then we go room by room. Well, in the living room, I'm going to use the sofa. So I basically indented the list. So we go here, go to the end, the cursor, leave the cursor at the end, enter, then tab, then creates like indented. So we have the sofa, we have the TV. In the kitchen, I have the fridge, then I have the stove, there's the cabinets, and in the bathroom, sink, toilet, shower. In the room, there's the bed and the window. So that's one way you can structure your memory palaces. And why would you want to like have your memory palaces written down? Is because if you stop reviewing them, you will forget them. So you still have to review it. But if many years later you look back and you're like, oh, I want to remember what I memorized like 2 years ago, you can just look back to the same old memory palace and you can remember it. So that's one way you can do it. If you want to use Excel, you can always put like the first, make it like multiple columns. So you do like room, position, then you put like the image. So you have here living room. Can everybody see what I'm doing? So here, can you guys see? Okay. So you have like the living room, the position, you have like sofa, and the image, let's say sofa, with milk. So we have the second one's TV, image, throwing eggs at TV, and so on. So you can keep doing that one by one. So kitchen, you go there, there's the fridge, there's the chicken, and blah, blah, blah. So you can do things that way. The idea is just that it's good to have some way to store your memory palaces other than your just your head. Because when you're learning, it can be helpful. And after, if you give up, if you don't want to keep reviewing that content, you can always go back and relearn it if you want to. Any questions so far? Sure.
So like it's easy to do it when you have like an image of throwing eggs or something, but how would you do it with memorizing numbers?
Yeah, I'm going to cover memorization of numbers in the next class. So next class is going to be about memorizing numbers. And the idea behind memorization of numbers is that we convert numbers into images. So we need a system that converts numbers to images and images to numbers. And that's called a major system. So the logic is that we convert each digit into a consonant sound, and we use those sounds to form words, and then we visualize those words. So the word door, for instance, the sound D refers to the digit 1. The sound R refers to the digit 4. So door represents 1, 4, or 14. So that's a whole system. So I'm going to be teaching you guys next class a different language, a new language for you guys to learn. But it's going to become like a kind of a second nature if you get interested in that. But it is possible, yeah. So any other questions? But I'm going to cover that more in detail next class. Any other questions? Sure.
How would you put the memory palace if you're trying to memorize like key terms like for like the LSAT or a class?
Key terms. So I would probably, what I would do, if you want to memorize like key terms of something, I would probably use Anki mostly. And if you're having trouble to use just Anki, I would create an image to help you remember it. So as we did like last lecture of creating images to recall, let's say, names and faces, creating images to memorize formulas, creating images to memorize whatever we wanted. So you're going to create an image just for that item. But if you have a list of things, that's when the memory palace becomes very useful. So if you want to memorize a whole list, or if you want to memorize like a set of things, like if you want to memorize a bunch of key terms together, so let's say they're not separate, it's a list of key terms, or all key terms of this topic, or if you want to memorize something, yeah, pretty much anything that you can put as a list, that you can group as a list of things. Okay. But some people, sure.
So should you only use like one list per memory palace?
You can use more than one list per memory palace. You can do that. Yes, you can. You just need to. You are gonna end up, as you review, you're gonna have that clear in your head. Like, oh, this place is where I start this. That place is where I start that. So that's one thing I was gonna say. You can also use the memory palace to review isolated information, if you want to. Let's say a bunch of key terms that are completely isolated, completely distinct, completely separate. You can, if you want to, have like a memory palace to store a bunch of unrelated ideas. You can do that if you want to, because it's really limitless. You do whatever you want. There's no police. There's no restriction. Whatever you want to remember, you can just leave it there in the memory palace. It's going to work. It's going to function perfectly. So you're really free to use it the way you prefer, the way you want. Any other questions about the memory palace? Any other questions? Questions. If you don't have questions, I can move on to the longer exercise. That's going to be fully on you. So let's memorize. So the exercise is going to be memorizing 15 African countries and their capitals. So I order them in alphabetical order. So have Algeria, Angola, Benin, Botswana, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cape Verde, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Comoros, Congo, Congo-Brazzaville, Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, Djibouti. So these are the capitals. So Algiers, Luanda, Porto Novo, Gaborone, Ouagadougou, Gitega, Praia, Yaoundé, Bangui, N'Djamena, Moroni, Kinshasa, Brazzaville, Yamoussoukro, Djibouti. So these are all the first 15 African countries in alphabetical order, and we're going to memorize them right now. So let's go. So firstly, we have a few problems. So the first problem is that each country and capital is a pair of items instead of just one item, right? Because in the list, in the grocery list, we had a single item per position of the memory palace. Now we have two items. We have the country's name and the capital. So we need to put, the idea is that we're going to put two elements, two images in the same position of the memory palace, in the same locus of the memory palace. So we're going to put one image to represent the country's name and another image to represent the capital in the same position. And we're going to know, oh, this position is, the first item of the position is the country, and the second position, the second image of the same position is the capital. The second one, and we can put them like interacting with each other, basically. That's how we're going to remember it's the same country. The second problem we're going to face is that the list of countries doesn't have a defined order. So I chose the order on my own. I put I chose those African countries based on alphabetical order. So I chose them completely on alphabetical order, but I could have chosen otherwise. I could have chosen another order. So we could have divided the countries by their region and use each room of the memory palace to memorize a different region, right? That's another way you can do it. So that's even more intuitive or even more useful. Like you can create a memory palace and be like, you know what? I'm going to put like each room of this memory palace, I'm going to put a different region, right? I'm going to put a different region of Africa. So I'm going to put all the countries of that region in this room of the memory palace. And then in my head, I'm going to know exactly where each country is. That can be a good idea. However, that requires more planning because your memory palace needs to have a similar structure, the same number of regions, the same number of rooms. So that requires a little bit more planning. We didn't have as much time. We would need to prepare more and all of that. But alphabetical order works just fine. But the idea is that if the list doesn't have a specific order, you got to make one. And you got to choose your order based on what you want to achieve. The third problem is that the names of the countries and capitals, they're not visualizable, right? They are not something that necessarily refer to something that you can see. So for instance, we have like the Ivory Coast. Okay, you can see it, right? Like ivory, it reminds us of something more visual, but some other ones are not as visual. So we're gonna be creative and think of images that remind us of those names. It can be an image that reminds us of the country or the capital, because we know the country, we know the capital. Let's say we know someone from that country, we know someone from that capital, or whatever. Or it can be that you're gonna create an image that reminds you of the name of that country or the name of that capital. It can be either. But the idea is that the image that you're gonna choose is gonna remind you of that place. Now, the first thing we gotta do is to determine the place, the palace, and the route. So right now, choose a memory palace, choose a place that you have visited before, like a friend's house or a business. Okay, so you can choose somewhere that you can have like around 5 rooms, some house that had around 5 rooms, or from 3 to 5 rooms, something around that. Any house you've visited in your life that you know well, that you can close your eyes and imagine yourself walking through it. It can be a previous house you lived in. It can be a friend's house. It can be anything like that. Everybody chose their memory palaces. Someone did not choose their memory palace yet, or needs help. Is it fine? Okay. Everybody's good? So let's move on. Now, I want you to write down the names of the rooms of the memory palace. So you can use a piece of paper or a Word file or Excel if you want. So you can do exactly as I did when I was typing on a Word file. I think that's very practical. It's very fast. Just type the rooms. You can also write on paper. Just write down the rooms. And inside each room, you're gonna choose about 5 loci or 5 positions. So you're gonna choose things that look distinct. So if you go to the kitchen, you have like the fridge, you have the counter, you have like the stove, you have the sink, you have whatever. You keep choosing places that look distinct in that place, in that room. So you're gonna choose around 5, from 3 to 5 for each room until you get the 15, because we memorize 15 countries. And when you choose the places, the positions, it is helpful to choose them in a clockwise direction. So let's say I'm using this room as a memory palace. The way I would choose the place is that I would enter the place in my head, enter the place, and I would select the loci or the positions in a clockwise direction. So I would go, there are like, here, there's something there, there's something there, there's something here, there's this. So I would choose the positions in this clockwise way. Because when I'm trying to recall them later, for me to recall in order, it's easier for me to remember. Well, I always recall in clockwise order. So I just imagine myself entering, oh, there's that thing that I put there, there's that thing that I put there, and so on. So we keep doing that way. And you write down the positions too. So you should write the loci in your list as well. 15 loci. I'll give you guys some time. If you have any questions, if you're having difficulties with anything, let me know. Okay? You don't need to worry about the list yet. We're gonna memorize together. Not together, but like we're gonna memorize in a second. But now I just want you to make sure that you have your memory palace determined, set with the route determined. Everybody has their route determined. Everybody? Okay, we'll give you just some more minutes. So you need 15 positions for us to memorize the list. Anyone doesn't have their list set yet? Okay, we'll give some time. Everybody's good? Everybody chose their 15 places? Can I move on to the memorization? Everybody got to do this, by the way. So everybody's good to go? Okay. So now let's memorize it. So we have this list, and we're going to memorize one pair of country and capital at a time. So I first want you to convert the country and the capital to something visualizable. So you're going to go one by one. Okay, this is a step-by-step procedure. So you go to the first one. So you have Algeria, and you have the capital Algiers. So the first thing you're going to ask yourself is, what does this country remind me of? And then you ask yourself, what does this capital remind me of? So you convert that into an image. And it can be something associated to the place itself. Like when you think of that place, you think of something specifically. Or it can be something related to the name, right? So you try to pronounce that word in your head, and then something comes up. Like you think, oh, that sounds like that. This name sounds like that. Whatever it is. So each person is going to have a different connection, because that's how the brain works. So each person ends up with a different connection in their head. That doesn't make sense to other people, but for them, it makes sense. And after you think of that, you're going to imagine those images associated to that respective locus. And then you should write that down in the piece of paper or Word file that you used. So where you wrote down your memory palace, you're going to put the image as well. You're going to write down the image that you thought of so that you can review later. So just in case you forget, and then you can look back while we are like practicing, we are learning how to implement the memory palace. So I'm going to give you guys some time. You should have questions in this, because this is not going to be easy, because it's your first time applying the method. So you're going to struggle a little to come up with images. And for the first ones, I may ask you guys for some ideas, okay? Just that we have a sense that everybody's like doing things right. So I'll give you guys some minutes, and then I'll ask for the first image, and the second image, and the third image, so we can get a sense. Sure? Which part?
We're writing images, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you explain that to us, like what kind of images.
So the idea is that when we were memorizing the grocery list, we had, let's say, the milk. Milk is something that I can see. And I was putting that in the sofa. So I connected those by imagining the sofa soaked in milk. But in this case, we cannot visualize that. So we are going to implement what we saw in the last lecture, where we had a certain, let's say, a certain name, and we needed to convert it to something that reminded us of that. So we had, let's say, we needed to remember that someone's surname was Scott, and we thought, well, Scott sounds like scooter. So I can imagine a scooter to represent Scott. So you can convert each name into something that sounds like, or something that reminds you of. So for instance, if you know someone from Algeria, you can use that person to represent Algeria. If you don't know anybody from Algeria, let's say Algeria to you sounds like gears. To me, it sounds like gears. So I would imagine gears to represent Algeria. So you can use anything like that. You can associate to either how it sounds like or to what it is, if you know someone from that place. Sure. Another question? Okay. Any other questions about this? This is not supposed to be easy. It's really so that you guys can have as many questions as possible, so that when you try to do something on your own, like, oh, I want to memorize the elements of the periodic table, you can do that, simply because I will have covered most of the questions you could have in this lecture. So you're going to go one by one. Try to be as methodical as possible on this one, try to follow this step by step. So go locus by locus. And take your time to visualize them as well. Take time to visualize the images in your head as you go through. Also, just to make sure, although you're writing things down, I don't recommend you to look back to the images before. So for the images that you created before, so let's say you're memorizing one by one, one by one. When you hit here, you should not be looking at the images you created here. Okay? Do not keep peeking to see, oh, what was the image that I created for Angola or Benin or so on. Like don't do that. So that you can actually force your memory to recall that. So you want to recall from your head, from your memory, not to be like keep like peeking at the answer or something. Okay. How many people are here in Burkina Faso? Raise their hands. No one? Okay. How many people are here? Okay. How many people are still here in the first one? No one? Okay. So, what image did you guys think for Algeria and Algiers? If you don't know, want to share, that's fine. But what image do you guys think? Any volunteers? Sure.
I thought of like monster made of algae, kind of like pointing and laughing at me.
Okay.
Like algae.
Nice.
Ears.
Okay. So for Algiers, you imagine algae, right? And what about Algeria?
That was algae.
Oh, that's Algeria. Uh huh.
Yeah. And then him jeering at me is the capital.
The what?
Him like jeering at me, like
Jeering.
pointing and laughing at me.
Oh, okay. And you imagine that in the first position of the Memory Palace.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's a good one. So imagine algae jeering at you, basically. Awesome. That's a good one. I didn't think of that. But that's a very good, yeah. Algae, yeah. That's a good idea. I didn't actually think of that in my head, because that's something funny about this. To some people, it's gonna be very obvious that, oh, obviously this reminds of that. But if you thought of something completely different, it's totally fine. And sometimes what you thought of is not intuitive to other people, because that connection exists only in your head, only, exclusively. Sure.
Boy, I know a person who comes from Algeria.
Oh yeah, knowing someone from Algeria, that helps a lot, because we have that clear image. Yes, that's great. What about Algiers?
Yeah, just imagine in the capital city playing his guitar.
Huh?
Just imagine Hisham from Algeria in his capital city.
Mhm.
They're all playing guitar.
Oh, I see.
He's playing a lot of guitars.
But that's the thing. You need to imagine that in the first position of your memory palace. You see the idea? Because then, when you put each country there, we want to have the image for each country in a different position of the memory palace, so that later you can recall the whole list by walking through the palace. You see the idea? Did you imagine in the first position of the memory palace, or like as a separate image? As a separate image. Okay. So try to imagine in the first position of the memory palace. You can imagine, like, did you write down the positions of the memory palace? So like imagine your friend in the first position of your memory palace. You get that, what I mean? So when you close your eyes and try to remember the place, you're gonna see your friend there. Okay, in that position. You know what I mean? But that's good. That's good. Now the second one, what do you guys think of? what image did you guys think of for Angola?
My LSAT was in stove, so I thought of a big Angora rabbit in the stove.
Okay, a big what?
It's a type of rabbit called an Angora rabbit.
Angora rabbit. Okay.
Sounds pretty close.
Okay. And what about Luanda?
I pictured 4 of those like car luau girls on the stove burning.
Okay, you imagine what?
You know those like little luau girls? that
Luau
live in
girls.
their car and they-
Okay. Okay, so you imagine that type of rabbit inside the stove and the girls on top of the stove that represent the capital. Okay. On fire. Okay, awesome. So, yes, that's good. That's good. I think that's memorable. One thing you could do as well, as a suggestion, is try to, when you convert the country into an image and you convert the capital into an image, try to imagine them doing something together, like interacting with each other in that place. Because when you do that, you have the capital working as a trigger for the capital. So now you connect both in your memory. Because right now in this image you have one inside the stove, the other on top. They're separate. So when you put both together, we use the second principle of visualization, which is like interaction. Interaction makes it more memorable because then you can use one as a trigger for the other, basically. So that's a suggestion that makes the image more strong, makes the image stronger. So in my image, what I did is that Angola sounds like Dangola, which is like a type of chicken. And in Portuguese, I don't know if you guys have that in English as well. And Luanda reminds me of the name Luana, which is very common in Portuguese. So I imagine my friend Luana, and I imagine the chicken, and they're interacting in the second position of the memory palace. Now the third one. The third one is hard for me in Portuguese, but I guess for you guys may be hard as well. Like Porto Novo is a Portuguese word, but like in English it sounds like nothing. But like it means something in Portuguese. So, any images you guys thought of for the third one? Sure, Sean.
I thought of like a guy named Ben, like going like in like a portal. So it's like Ben in, and then it's like a portal. It's like, but then it's like the portal's like spitting him out. It's like Porto Novo.
That's so nice. I like it. Okay, and where is that happening?
That's happening in like a sink.
In a sink. Great. So you put that in the third position of a memory palace.
Yeah.
Great. So Ben is entering. Ben in.
Yeah.
In a portal, and the portal is like no, like no.
Yeah, I was like imagine like turning the sink on. It's like all right, Ben in, and then the water spits out. It's like Porto Novo.
Awesome. Okay, great. Awesome. I like it. Awesome. That's great. So I guess you guys got the logic here. So we convert one into one thing, the country into one image, convert the capital into another image, go to the respective position, connect both. So I like that both items interacted. So you have Benin was converted to Ben. Porto Novo was converted to Porto. And then you put both together in that position of the memory palace. And that's what we want. So we want them interacting. So yeah, that's good. So how far did you guys get? I'm going to give you guys more time. Okay, let's give you guys more time to cover the rest of the countries. And if you have any questions, let me know. So I'm going to keep moving on and going one by one, but giving you guys more time. If you guys can think of images that you cannot say out loud, it's great. So the more absurd, ridiculous, funny, outrageous, lustful, weird, reprehensible, whatever it is. The more absurd it is, the better. Okay, if you can't say it out loud, it means it's good. Okay, if you can't say it out loud, it's because it's very good image. So try to basically be creative. Okay, be as creative as possible. Do not be afraid of your creativity. And let's move on to the next images. And when you guys, anyone who finishes memorizing KPVH, actually, let me, yeah, anyone who finishes memorizing KPVH, raise their hands, okay? When you reach there and finish memorizing that country, you raise your hand. After memorizing KPVH and Praia. If you have trouble pronouncing any of them, just let me know. Though. Like if you don't know how it says, how it's pronounced.
How do you say Burkina Faso's capital?
Burkina Faso. Ouagadougou. I guess that's what I watched. Like I searched like how to pronounce this. Is it right? No. Okay. Okay. Anyone who finished Cape Verde, raise their hands. Okay. Anyone else finished memorizing Cape Verde? Okay. Anyone reached memorized Burundi already? Okay. Okay, I'll give him a little bit more time. If you have finished up to Cape Verde, you can go on to memorize the next ones. Okay, if you like, keep memorizing. I'm gonna give time, but like we're gonna go back and then we discuss and so on. I'll give a little bit more time. I'll give like other 3 minutes, and then we go together and think of images. By the way, when you're coming up with the image, pick the first thing that comes to your head. You don't need to be very picky about it. It's really, you read it, you're like, what does this remind me of? Period. If you can't think of something at first, you just try to speak it like out loud in your head. Like you try to say it. Let's say Burkina Faso. You're like Burkina. What does this remind me of? You just pick the first thing that pops in your head. Simple as that. The first thing that pops to your head is what your brain connected that to. And that's usually that's going to be the strongest connection you can think of. So you pick the first thing that pops in your head. So that's how you memorize quickly. You pick the first option. The first thing comes to your head, you pick it. Sure.
For like Central African Republic, it's kind of different from all the other ones.
Yeah, that's a good one. So Central African Republic, it's a long word. It has 3 parts. It is difficult to think of something. I will cover that. But since you're already there, I'll spoil that to the other ones as well. So the way I memorized this one is just by the first letters. So car, because they form a word. So imagine a car. But you could imagine just something to represent just the first word, which is central. And if you can think of something like Central Park, you can pick a character from Central Park and use as Central African Republic. So you can do this multiple ways. That was the first connection that came to my head. Oh, Central African Republic. What can I think of? Well, car. But you could think, well, Central African Republic, Central Park, that character, that funny character from Central Park, or whatever. So really, there are multiple options you can do this. Yeah. Anything that comes to your head that gets associated to that. Okay, I think I'm gonna move on then to go one by one. So, what did you guys think of Botswana and Gaborone? What image did you think? Any volunteers? Any ideas? Sure, Sean.
I thought of like a robot trying to like punch down a door. And it's like bots wanna like take over, you know, like Botswana.
Okay.
And then like for like Gaborone, I was thinking like chaperone kind of thing. It's like I was imagining like chaperone, like stop.
Chaperone. Okay. Okay. So for the Botswana, can you repeat the image again? So it's a bot.
Yeah, it's like a giant robot, like trying to like wanting to take over.
Okay. So one thing that I noticed is when you were describing the image, you were saying it's like saying Botswana, like that, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that you learn with practice. But in my experience, usually we may have the tendency when we are trying to memorize something like a list using the memory palace to when we can't think of something to encode the whole word, we're gonna try to put the word itself in the palace, like either written or spoken or something like that. And the problem with this is that usually that is very easy to forget. So is the bot yelling Botswana, or is it the bot yelling Botana, or is the bot, yelling. After some time, you will forget them very easily. So what you want is that the image itself will be enough for you to remember it. Like it gotta be the connection of the image and what you're trying to remember needs to be enough. Usually, that's like a rule of thumb, like from practice that I would have. So you could have, for instance, the way I thought of this was a swan that's a bot. So it's partially robotic. It has robotic parts. You could imagine just a bot, because maybe for you, imagining just a bot is enough to remember. Bot, Botswana. Maybe that's enough. But what I want to make sure is that you can recall the whole thing based on just that image, and you don't need the sound, like it to tell you what it is. You know what I mean? Once if the image needs to remind you of that thing without you thinking of needing it to recall, needing it to recite it to you. You get the idea, the logic. So Botswana, Gaborone. What is the Gaborone?
It's like
Chaperone, and it's blocking, right? Okay, awesome. What about Burkina Faso? What did you guys think of? Sure. What? Birkenstocks? What is that?
It's a brand of shoes.
Ah, British shoes. Okay, nice. I didn't know it. Okay, Burkina Faso, Birkenstocks, awesome. What about Ouagadougou?
Someone I know got stationed there in the Marines, so it's like him opening the cabinet and all the stuff falling.
Okay, great. So this guy from the Marine opens and all the shoes fall. And in this case, you imagine that in your fifth position in the memory palace, right? Okay, great. So notice that Birkenstock am I saying it right? So Birkenstock doesn't represent Faso, right? Just the first. It has the first part of the first one, right? And that's usually enough. So you don't need to have an image that encodes all the word. Usually, for instance, the Botswana, maybe bot is enough. So maybe, for instance, I imagine a swan that's a bot, but maybe you don't need that. You can have just one word for the whole, a short word for the whole thing, and that works. And here is one thing about the order of things. So usually, that's something interesting. But in the locus, how do you know which image is for the country and which image is for the capital? Did you think of that? Like, I saw the first image. How do I know that image is referring to the capital and not the country, or the country not the capital? You had an idea.
And my mom knows something about it, like in the positions, they're all on one side is going to be the country.
Yes.
And on one is gonna be the capital.
Yes, great.
They're the same across.
Great. So the idea was that in one side you're gonna put the country, the other side you're gonna put the capital. So as a convention, it is good for you to have that set. So in this case, we're memorizing countries. But if you're memorizing the elements, you may divide, for each locus, you may put like 3 pieces of information, for instance. And how you're gonna remember which one is which. And a good idea is to always place the items in the same order for all the loci. So, and it's, for instance, a good habit is to go through each locus in your memory palace from left to right. So the first position on the left is going to be the country. The position on the right is going to be referring to the capital. So the first image on the left, country, the one on the right, capital. And you do that every single locus. So you're never gonna confuse, oh, is this the capital or is this the country? You can always have that in order. Now, Burundi, who memorized it? Oh, sure.
I've kind of like made the connection because I know somebody from Burundi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have a nickname that I call it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say it out loud.
Okay.
With this flag.
Uh-huh.
Report me.
Okay.
So I use that nickname
Okay.
to represent the person.
Okay, sure.
Right, then I also made the connection to him going to Huntington Bank. so that also tenga zvarikuda. So you know, like the word is called kitenga, right?
Yes.
In Shona, there's a word called kutenga.
Okay, huh?
It means buy,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
So the nickname is connected to money,
Yes.
right?
Uh-huh.
Huntington is connected to money.
Yes.
And the phrase in Shona called kutenga, it means buying something.
Yes.
So when I remember kutenga, I'll remember gitenga.
Okay.
And when I remember the nickname, I'm going to know it's Burundi.
Okay.
Also, Huntington Bank is also
Okay.
related to money too.
So you related one to each other, like you made like this connection.
It's like a
Uh-huh.
channel of like relations.
Uh-huh.
Right? So I just imagine a person going to that bank.
Did you imagine that happening? Where?
In the bank. The person walked to the bank. And I know this person, that's why it was
Yeah.
so easy.
I see your point.
The person walked to the bank, was in the bank.
Yeah.
You know,
I do think that works. That does work to recall it. But it's not necessarily the memory palace method. Because every single pair needs to be placed in that position of the memory palace. Did you, for instance, the memory palace you created, that was the 6th position, right? So did you put that image in the 6th position of the memory palace?
I put Burundi in the bank, right?
The bank is the 6th position of the memory. Oh no, okay, that works. Okay, now I see. Okay, great. What is your memory palace, by the way? No, what is the memory palace, by the way?
Like what you just explained.
No. What place did you choose as the memory palace?
Oh, the bank.
Okay. Is your whole memory palace the bank? Like you put all the other items in the bank?
Yeah.
Okay.
I put Burundi, and I also put the thought process, right? So you know the capital is being signified by the thought process.
Okay.
That thought process is going to have it twice in the bank.
Okay.
So it's more like it's connected to the bank, like the entire procedure and almost everything.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. He's gonna withdraw some money that
he's
gonna use to go buy something, and that thought process is connected to the tenga.
Okay. So one thing that I'm not sure if I understood it correctly. So you chose the memory palace as a bank, but that's the same memory palace for the previous items, right?
Yeah.
So in which position of the bank did you put Algeria?
I only thought about it for Burundi.
Okay. So the idea would be that you would pick some place as your memory palace, choose the positions inside that place, and for each country, for each pair of country and capital, you would put in each position. In each position,
So
you would have.
Burundi, right? My friend.
Yeah, he would be, let's say, at the counter of at the counter of the bank. Algeria would be at the door, and so on. And you would, yes,
And
yeah.
money is used for this particular purpose, and it all happened in the bank.
Yeah, you can do this idea of adding meaning to the memory palace. It's called the story method, and it's very common for people to use that, like to add a story, a background story to the memory palace. Some people find it useful. It's not necessary. You can base just on the image. In my experience, I find it very easy to forget the story, and the image usually stays for longer. But you can totally do that for recalling things, definitely, to make it more fun and more engaging. I definitely think it makes more engaging. What about Cape Verde? Any ideas for Cape Verde? Sure.
I thought about one with the green cape, like Green mentioned. That's the green cape. Because Capa Verde in Spanish is like green cape.
Yes. Okay. Great.
Playa sounds like playa, which is beach in Spanish. So I thought about on one side of the position, the guy in the cape.
Okay. A guy with green cape.
And then he's looking at the beach. Yeah.
He's looking at the beach. A guy in green cape looking at a beach, and where is that happening?
That's happening in another position.
Okay, it's happening in another position of the Memory Palace. So that works. That's good. I really like the connection of Cape Verde and Cabo Verde, which is like, it's good because you speak Spanish, so it makes it much easier to remember it. Like, it's much easier for me as well because this country speaks Portuguese. That's something that bothers me, is like, we don't have many Portuguese speakers here in this college, and everyone who speaks Portuguese here, they are from Brazil, and it's nice. But I wonder, like nobody from Angola here, nobody from Cape Verde here. In Brazil, I had, like, in my school, there were like a bunch of exchange students from Angola, but here I've never met a single person from Angola in the U.S. But whatever. So about Cape Verde and Praia, one thing, that's a suggestion. So you have green cape looking at a beach. So for most things that can work fine. But as something, since we are all learning here, one suggestion: when you make your image, ask yourself, how can I make this image more memorable, weirder, funnier, or whatever? Maybe I can imagine, let's say, this person vomiting a beach out of their mouth. How is that possible? That's not possible. But, like, you can imagine in your imagination that's possible. You can imagine someone pooping a beach in that position. That's not possible, but, like, imagine it, like a mini beach, whatever it is. You can imagine a smaller version of a beach in that region as well of your memory palace, like a tiny beach, and the person is there and doing something funny or weird or humorous. So you can be, like, creative in that way. So let's move on to Cameroon. What do you guys think? Cameroon. Anybody memorize Cameroon? Sure.
Well, I know someone named Cameron. So
Someone named Cameroon?
yeah.
That makes it much easier. Yeah, great.
It's the table in my house. So he's like on top of the table and he's howling.
Okay. So he's on top of the table and he's howling. And how do you memorize Yaoundé?
The howling, like, howling sounds like.
Okay, great. Okay, I think that works. So for some things, although I said that sound is usually not good, there are cases that it works, there are cases that it doesn't work. So in this case, I do think it works. Nice. Because how can I explain this? It's not as if the sound in this case, it's not about the sound, it's about what it's doing, right? What they are doing. It's not separate to the image. You get the logic, like how it plays. But what matters the most, like, if it works, basically. That's the supreme fundamental and principle of mnemonics. So time is running, so I think it's better for us, like, to go, like, as fast as possible here. So from now on, who here thought of Central African Republic? Who memorized Central African Republic? Nepal. Anyone? Sure.
I was thinking, like, this is like in a kitchen, and I'm like at the sink, and then, like, a car bangs into me while I'm washing the dishes.
And what about Bangui?
It bangs in and
Okay,
car
so
crashes in.
So imagine Central African Republic, you converted car, C-A-R, and imagine the car, it bangs into you, right? So car bangs, great. And what about Chad? Anyone memorize Chad? Sure?
I thought about just Chad, like a white dude named Chad.
Okay, a white dude named Chad.
Chad. That's such a white dude.
And what about N'Djamena?
I don't know if I got that, but it's making me think of just like, I don't know, jam. Just
Jam. Great. So imagine Chad, Jam. Which position of the memory palace?
Just in a different, in a shifted location from the other one.
Where's the position? Like, where is it? It's a sink? It's a bed? What is it?
I'll say sink, and he has his hand in the jam.
Okay, so it's a sink. Chad has his hands on that. Okay, you can also imagine he's eating jam from the sink. You can imagine he's vomiting jam on the sink. That's disgusting. It makes it more memorable. Trust me, it makes it more memorable. if you imagine the jam, he's eating the jam from the sink, and imagine that the jam is dirty and has like other food in it. It's even more disgusting, and that's more memorable. The weirder, the better. So we got up to here. Everybody managed to imagine their images up to here. Just imagine your head in the Memory Palace. So now we go Comoros. Anybody memorize Comoros? Anybody? Sure.
It sounded like Camaro.
Camaro.
So
Camaro. What is Camaro?
it's like a car.
Okay. Oh, like Camaro.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Bologna reminded me of like macaroni.
Macaroni. Oh, that's good. Okay. So Comoros remind of Camaro. Moroni. Okay. That's macaroni. That's great. And where's that happening? What is happening?
I don't know, like a couch covered in macaroni and clothes are driving.
Okay. A couch is covered in macaroni and the cars are driving. I like that the images are getting weirder and weirder and weirder as we move on, and that's awesome. That's great. As weird as possible, the better. Now, let's move on to Congo. Who thought of an image for Congo and memorized Congo? Anybody thought of something for Congo? Anybody? Sure.
A Congo line, like a dance line, like when you dance in a Congo line.
Oh, dancing in a Congo line. I didn't know that. Okay. And what did you? Congo, Kinshasa? Kinshasa. So Kinshasa, if you're having trouble memorizing Kinshasa, in Portuguese, Kinshasa sounds like cachaça, which is a drink. But in English, I would maybe think of cane. So Kinshasa remind me of cane. What else? Yeah, you could imagine a king dancing in a Congo line. That would work. And you imagine that in that position of the Memory Palace. So that would work. Any other ideas for Congo or Kinshasa? Anybody? Any other ideas? Everybody managed to imagine that. So you have the king dancing in the Congo line, or something else you thought of to memorize Congo and Kinshasa. I want everybody to have reached here, to have memorized all the countries up to here. Okay. So everybody should have memorized all of them in your memory palace and be visualizing them, the images. Okay. So we have Congo Brazzaville and Cote d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast and Djibouti. I'm gonna leave these last three for you guys, give you guys some time to finish the list. I'll give you just a few minutes. And try to be fast. Pick the first image that comes to your head, put it there, interact, and move on. What does Congo Brazzaville remind me of? What does Brazzaville remind me of? Interact, put in the place, move on. Cote d'Ivoire, what does it remind me of? Or Ivory Coast, what does that remind me of? Yamoussoukro, what does that remind me of? Put it together, put that in the position of the memory palace. Djibouti, what does that remind me of? Put it there. When you finish memorizing them, raise your hands. Okay. I'll give just one more minute. Okay, let's go. So now we have Congo Brazzaville and we have Brazzaville. What did you think of? What did you think of for this particular country and capital? Sure.
Congo, like drum roll, and then like the door opens, and then it's like Brazil.
Okay. Okay, good. So, it's in a door. There's a Congo, drum roll, and then opens the door, Brazil. Great. So, Cote d'Ivoire, what do you guys think of? And Yamoussoukro. Sure.
DJ Rover eating yam at my house.
Okay. Who?
DJ Rover is a famous footballer from Cote d'Ivoire.
Okay,
So I was
nice.
like, DJ Rover is eating yam. Yam is a food. Like, it's a
Nice.
food.
I like it, love it.
Eating that food
Okay,
at
so
my house.
great. So you have this player from this place eating yam there. Great. Djibouti. What do you guys think? So we can close all the countries, 15 countries. Let's go, Djibouti. What do you guys think of? Sure, Sean?
Mine was like a rock wall kind of, so you can imagine climbing the wall and then falling on Djibouti.
Okay. Okay, great. So I think we have closed all the ones. Has anyone reached all of them? Sure? Oh, okay. Yeah. Because we are going to recall all of them after this. So has anyone memorized all of them? Is everybody on pace? No? So which countries are having trouble with?
I think quite a few.
No, that's fine. Because you can also, you can steal the images from other people. So if you haven't thought of all of them, let's steal the images. So Algiers, which ones don't you have an image for?
It's in the last one.
So which ones? Say the first one you don't have an image. Cote d'Ivoire, you can imagine ivory, right? Imagine just ivory. So Yamoussoukro, imagine yam. So imagine ivory eating yam in that position. Remember, close your eyes, try to picture it. Ivory eating yam in that position. Which other country do you have?
And then the last one.
So Djibouti, you can imagine a DJ. Imagine a DJ, just playing a DJ. And because it's a single image, you know, well, DJ and it's just DJ. Well, it's Djibouti and Djibouti. It's the same name. Anyone did not reach all the countries yet? Anyone? We're gonna recall all of them together. So you need to have reached all of them. Sure.
For Burundi.
For Burundi? For Burundi, I use someone I know. So, Burundi. What do you guys think of for Burundi? Sure.
I thought of like the run D, so I like barrel, run, and dive onto the table.
Okay. Huh. That's interesting. Bear, run, and die. What is that? Like I don't.
Like barrel is like so dumb. Like running towards the table and you like do a barrel dive onto it.
Okay. Okay. So you use multiple images to represent Burundi.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's yeah. Let's see. Any other ideas about this Burundi? For Burundi, what do you think of?
Well, it was a fridge for me. So I thought of like a runner and whole running get up and the fridge and he's shivering.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good. So Burundi, we can imagine like run, or it's in the middle. But I don't like that as much.
I was just reading it like the same.
Because in my head, it's very clear what Burundi connects to because I have someone who comes from there. So it's the first connection that is in my head. What other images do you guys think for Burundi? And I can think of Portuguese words as well, but I can't think of an English one for you guys. What do you think, Sean?
I'm not sure if I can say.
That's totally fine. Did you think of something? Okay. Has everybody completed all of them? No? Which ones are you missing?
I'm starting to get really tired, and so I'm having a problem remembering everything below Central African Republic.
Okay, so Chad, you can imagine it's just like a white dude, and you imagine Chad. N'Djamena, you can imagine Jam. Comoros, you can imagine Camaro. And Moroni, macaroni. Imagine Camaro running over macaroni. Congo, people thought of what was it? What is the name of the thing? Congo line. It wasn't Congo line for Brazzaville? Which one is which? For Congo, so Congo line, Kinshasa, you can imagine a king going through a Congo line. For Congo Brazzaville, you can imagine Congo drums. Huh? So Congo drum and then Brazil, you connect both somehow. Cote d'Ivoire, you can or Ivory Coast, can imagine like ivory eating yam. Djibouti, you can imagine a DJ. So everybody finish all of them. I have so much, I still have a lot to show. So I need to go quickly. So let's recall this. So we go, first country. What is the first country? Go, close your eyes and try to recall the first position of the Memory Palace. What is the first country that you can think of? Algeria. What is the capital? Okay, you go, move on. What is the next country? Okay, what is the capital? Okay, awesome. You go to the next country. What is it? Yeah, awesome. What is the capital? Awesome. You go to the next position. What is the country? Awesome. What is the capital? Yes. Awesome. You go to the next position. What is the country? Yes. Awesome. What is the capital? Yes. So you go next position. What is the country? Yes, it's Burundi. What is the capital? Awesome. Now you go to the next position. What is the country? Okay. Now what is the capital? Awesome. Now you go to the next position of Memory Palace. So what is the country? Cameroon. What is the capital? Awesome. Yaoundé. So you go to the next position of the Memory Palace. What is the country? Awesome. What is the capital? Okay. You move to the next position of the Memory Palace. What is it? What is the country? You go. What is the capital? Awesome. We go to the next position of the Memory Palace. What is the country? What is the capital? Awesome. Go to the next position of the Memory Palace. What is the country? Awesome. What is the capital? Awesome. You go to the next position of the Memory Palace. What is the country? What is the capital? Go to the next position. What is the country? Go capital. Go to the next country. What is the capital? Awesome. Beautiful. Now, something that we still have like 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to cover the rest as quickly as possible. So the idea is that if you don't review what you memorize, you will forget it. And for reviewing stuff, the best option is to use Anki. So we're going to use flashcards to review the information. So we need to find a way to structure what we memorize as flashcards, as front and back pairs. So, and there are 4 main ways of doing that. You can create flashcards where you recall one part of the thing based on the other. So let's say you recall the country given the capital, or recall the capital given the country. So on Anki, that would basically mean that you would create, let it load. So you would, let's say, here I'm on Anki, let's say African countries. Let's say I have memorized all the African countries. I have this deck, African countries. I'm going to create the flashcard. What I could do is to create here the front. I'm going to do like Algeria, and the back I would do Algiers, for instance. And then I would add each flashcard that way. So I would add the country and the capital, and I would create the flashcards that way for me to review later. So I would not put the memory palace itself here, but just the information. And then when I try to recall the information, I'm going to go back to my memory palace trying to find the information. Get the idea? So you're going to be using the memory palace underlying to help you review that. Another option is to recall an item given its locus. So you could add the flashcards as like, what is the item in the front door? So you add the front door, and then you put, well, in the front door, the country is Burkina Faso, and the capital is Ouagadougou. I'm not sure if I wrote it correctly. I don't think so. But no, I think I did. So you can do that, right? So you put the locus in the front of the flashcard, and you put the information you put in that position as the back of the flashcard. Another way of doing this is to put in the front the previous country, the previous locus, and the back you put the next one. So you make pairs of item and successor. So for instance, you could do like in the front flashcard, you're gonna add, let's say, Algeria and Algiers. So in the back, you're gonna try to recall what is the next one? What is the next country? Well, the next country is Angola, and the capital is Luanda. So you're gonna create the flashcards that way. And then the next one, you would do Angola, Luanda, after you added that flashcard. And then the back would be, the next one is what? Benin, Porto Novo. So you keep doing that for all of them. This is another way for you to create the flashcards. Shuffle, always shuffle. And the last way you can review your memory palaces is by creating by a region of your memory palace. So let's say you could say, I want to review each region together. So in the living room, what are the countries that are there? So you add one by one. Oh, the first one is Algeria, Algiers. The next one would be Angola, Luanda, and then you go Benin, Porto Novo, and you Botswana, Gaborone, and so on. And you keep doing one after the other. So you do like all the items in that region of your memory palace and review all of them together in the same flashcard. That's one option you can do. So since we want flashcards to be as short as possible, as quick as possible, you're only gonna do the last one, usually with numbers, not with this one. But usually you're gonna want to do either the first one, the second one, or the third one. The first one is very useful because this is what actually happens in real life. You are told of a name of a country and you want to recall the capital. That's the most realistic way for you to review. Or you're given a capital and you want to remember where that place is from. So the first one is usually the most useful because the memory palace exists only in your head. In the real life, you have actual stuff coming up to you, and you need to have, it's good for you to practice as you would use the information in real life. If you stop reviewing, you will eventually forget it, and that's why it's good for you to have a written copy of your memory palaces somewhere. So in a Word file, as a notebook, or on an Excel spreadsheet. Now, some ideas for you guys to memorize, things for you guys to memorize. You can memorize human anatomy, countries, their capitals, region, and flags, the elements and their properties, vocabulary, important historical dates, speeches, names and faces, constellations, individual and their individual stars, taxonomy of the animal kingdom, phylogenetic trees. You can memorize all of these or anything. You can memorize absolutely anything you want after this lecture. Now, I'm gonna answer some questions about this, about the memory palace. So we'll try to be quick since the time is running. We have very little time. But here are some common questions. So how many elements can you put in each locus? So we memorize the country and the capital. So that's 2 elements. Usually, it's not good for you to put more than 3. 3 is a good maximum for you to have, or else it starts to get too confusing. How many loci per room? 5 is a good number. 5 is a good number. 3 to 5 positions per room in your memory palace is good. How many loci per memory palace? It can go up to 50 or 75. That's a good number. You can do less than that, but it's not good for it to have like 100 positions in the same memory palace. You can always pick multiple memory palaces. The fact that you have them divided is also good. It makes it easier to remember. Can I divide the list across multiple memory palaces? Yes, you can memorize a whole list of all the countries, all 196 countries, using 5 different memory palaces. Should I walk through the palace in a specific order? Choose the route that's most intuitive. How am I going to choose the order of the rooms? Pick the most intuitive order for you. Is it more intuitive to go living room, kitchen, and bathroom and so on, or bathroom, living room, and kitchen? Choose what is more intuitive to you. How do I review my memory palaces? Anki. Anki is the best for reviewing whatever you have to review. How should I store my memory palaces? Word file, a notebook. I prefer digital ones, but like you could use notebook. Word file or Excel spreadsheets, you can use that. Or you can write them down. Some people like to draw their memory palaces, the house plans of the memory palaces as well. Some people find it fun and find it more engaging. Or even drawing the images. Some people like that. I don't do any of that, but it can be. I like to write them down so that I can have them later to review. Can I reuse my memory palaces? This is a big question. Can I reuse them? You can in some conditions. So if the images are still clear in your memory palace, if you try to reuse them, you can confuse the information. So as a rule of thumb, don't reuse them until the information has been forgotten. Because very often you're going to use the memory palace method to memorize something, but you don't need to remember that for the rest of your life. So you can memorize it and let it be forgotten, and then you can reuse the palace again. So you memorize it, keep memorizing other things, use other memory palaces, and when you come back after many months, you will have forgotten information there, and the memory palace will be clean. Another thing is that you can also reuse the memory palaces insofar as the information is very distinct. If you're memorizing if they are very distinct, and you also don't need to recall the previous information, you can reuse it. If it's not 100% clean, but it's very distinct, usually you can use it. But test it. As a rule of thumb, create a new memory palace. If you're wondering, oh, should I use the same, create a new memory palace. There's no cost in creating a new memory palace. There are infinitely many places you could use. Should I create a memory palaces ahead of time? I don't like that. Like, you don't have to have like a list of memory palaces for you to use when you have to, when you need them. No, have just one memory palace that's clean, that you can use wherever you want, but you don't have to build them beforehand. When you want to memorize something specifically, you pick a place for you to construct the memory palace. Construct when you need it. What if the information is not a list? You build a list. You transform it into a list. You turn it into a list. You choose an order that makes sense to you, that's useful for that application specifically. What should I do if I can't picture things very vividly? You practice increasingly. So when I was starting to memorize, I had a lot of trouble visualizing things. So I would do this plan of like 5 minutes a day, every day for a week. And I would start to memorize things. I would try to visualize things in my head and increase the complexity day by day. So the first days I would be just like imagining like a circle, a sphere. I would try to rotate that. I imagine like a key. I try to rotate the key, and things get more complex. One thing that helped me a lot is that if you visualize something in front of you and you close your eyes and you try to visualize that by recalling it, it's much easier than recalling from scratch. So for instance, that red pen. Maybe if I told you, imagine a red pen, that's not going to be as vivid as if you look at that red pen and you immediately close your eyes and try to recall exactly that. Like if you look at it, close your eyes, try to recall it. Try to imagine what you just saw. It happens that it kind of looks like the memory, it's almost as if what you just saw keeps imprinted for a few seconds in your eyes. It's a weird phenomenon, but it makes it easier for you to imagine. And if you keep doing that, and then you try to give yourself more time to hold that image for longer, you can play with it, and then you can improve your visualization. Can I use hallways, classrooms, and open spaces? You can. What is the problem? If a hallway is 1 kilometer long, I do not know miles. Sorry. But like 1 kilometer long, it's very long. impossibly long. So enormously long. How many positions can I put there? Very few. Why? Because the hallway, through all its extent, looks the same thing. The beginning of the hallway looks like the middle of the hallway, looks like the end of the hallway. You have Oberlin. How many different classrooms could you use? That's so many positions of a memory palace, right? Wrong. All those classrooms look the same. So if 100 classrooms count as much as one classroom, because all of them look the same. So if you try to memorize different things in different classrooms, in your head, you're going to confuse them. So you can use them, but be aware that a bunch of things that look the same count as one, because we do not want to have memory palaces that look similar, because you can confuse the information. How to get faster at creating memory palaces? Pick the first image that comes to your head and get practice. How to memorize text? I'll cover that in another lecture. So we're going to cover text memorization. How to memorize numbers? It's the next lecture. If you have questions, I'm going to cover that's the last thing. So there is this forum, this website that you can use for learning memory methods and talking to other people and for competing in memory competitions. So the name of the forum, the name of the website is Art of Memory. And in this website, you can talk to people who are like very good, very skilled at the field of memorization. So if you go here to this website and you can ask questions, you can post questions, and people all around the world can answer you. You have like memory athletes, you have memory champions. If you go here, these are the top posts. Go here, click all time. You can see the best topics that were made. This is really like worldly recognized place. Like memory athletes go here. And you have a bunch of incredibly useful information and like things people have shared about, let's say, applying memory palaces to learning. This is a good one. I really like this one, Gavino's Massive Memory Palace. It's a specific system. There is this one that's very, very nice. Ask a Memory Champion. This was a 3-time memory world champion called Ben Pridmore, and he made this post, and like people asked him questions. So he's a very nice guy. I've talked to him like I think twice or something, and like people are very available here. Like they're very willing to help, and I think it's an amazing community. And you can ask questions, you can learn as well. We can click here resources, and there are a bunch of resources. There's a free ebook you can have access to, like Getting Started Guide with all the techniques and methods and so on. So this is a very, very good resource if you want to dive deeper into it, into learning and memorization. Or if you want to compete, because there is an online competition here as well, run by this website. So you can compete with people all around the globe. Lastly, first midterms due today. If you're taking this class for credit, send me an email with the 15 flashcards on Anki. And next class, how to memorize numbers. It's on Thursday, same time, same classroom. And that's it. I'm sorry for running late, for going over the time. If you have any questions, please let me know. Yeah, any questions? Any questions, guys? Huh? Yeah, just take, yes, exactly. Send me, that's good enough. Sure.
I said, use screenshot of just like my.
Okay, I'll finish the video then.